Hey guys, welcome to my channel, or welcome back if it is not your first time. Today I'm going to be doing a very highly requested video. Honestly, I don't know if there's been a video more requested on my channel within the last year than this video, all about my degree, all about working in the food industry, and just kind of like my journey, if that makes sense. I never knew that you guys would be interested in a video like this or just this topic, but a lot of you guys have been asking a lot of questions, so I figured I would go ahead and address everything in a big FAQ video, just because I know that I'll still get questions, and then that way I can just kind of refer people to this video. I've gotten a lot of messages on Instagram, which I genuinely love and I really appreciate, because I never knew that my journey would inspire so many people to study food science. I just feel really grateful to have inspired people to study this subject. And so I'm going to go over a lot of different things. Hopefully this video won't be too long, but like I said, I want to cover a lot. If you guys are new to my channel, definitely make sure to subscribe. There's some videos on my channel about me in college, getting my degree, working for a food company, teaching food science, which all of those opportunities were just great. And a lot of those videos, like I said, have kind of gained traction, which is why people have been messaging me. This is personally my experience, so my experience will not speak to everyone's experience, and everyone's experience will be different. So I would definitely suggest, like, don't go into this career hoping that your experience will be just like mine, because everyone's experience is different. Like I said, I have my laptop here with all of the questions, not all the questions, but a lot of questions that you guys asked. So another thing is, if you guys really like sit down videos where I just kind of talk about something, a topic or something like that, let me know, because I actually really like these kind of videos as well. Follow me on Instagram if you guys already are not, and let's go ahead and jump right into it. I attended the University of Illinois down at Urbana-Champaign, and that is a school in Illinois. Their food science program is honestly one of the top food science programs in the country. UC Davis has a really good food science program as well. And so when I was applying to be in the food science program, U of I was just my top pick, because it was in Illinois. I grew up in Illinois, and they just had a really good ranking. So a lot of people have asked how I got into food science, what inspired my journey, just because food science is not something that's talked about a lot. It's not really, it's well known now, but back then it wasn't talked about as a career choice. So fun fact, I actually wanted to be a chef when I was in high school. I really enjoyed a lot of the home ec classes and the food classes, and I ended up getting really close with my foods teacher, which shout out Miss Marks. That's like Miss Marks, shout out Miss Marks, because her program at my school was 10 out of 10, and we learned a lot about cooking, and she made it really fun. And so then my senior year of high school, I had already taken all of the classes, so she let me be her teacher's assistant, and I got credit. But at that point I was like, wait, what am I gonna do with my life after I graduate high school? My parents were like, culinary school is not gonna cut it, just because it's not as stable, and my test scores were really good, and I'm really good in math and science. So I was just like, what can I study that involves food and math and science? So food science was it. I looked up food chemistry, I looked up food science, and it popped right up, and I was like, okay, that's what I'm gonna do, and that's what I did. So I knew going into university that I was gonna study food science, and I never changed my mind on the journey. So as I got there, I did not know how rigorous the courses would be. I had an idea that it would be a difficult degree to obtain, and I did like that it would be challenging. But a lot of you guys asked, what courses did I have to take? That is a mouthful. I'm gonna leave a link down below, and maybe put it on the screen if I can, just like all of the curriculum that you have to take at U of I. And I know every university is different, but I'm just gonna leave the link down below so you guys can see what classes I took. And honestly, it was so much fun. Freshman year was pretty simple because it was a lot of the gen ed classes, but you did take some food science classes. You take like an intro to food science class, chemistry classes, and some of the other classes at U of I, biology courses if you need biology credit, rhetoric, just kind of like a composition class, and then you take chemistry labs and stuff like that. You do take some food labs. I took one food lab freshman year. Then sophomore year, second year, you take more chemistry classes. You take organic chemistry, physics 1, a lot of food science classes, microbiology, chemistry classes. Like, you guys, the list goes on and on, so I'm not even gonna waste your time and go through all of these. Then I took sensory science, which is like a sector of food science. And a lot of people don't understand how much goes into the food that we eat. I mean, when I first looked into food science and food chemistry as a high school student, it was only because I was curious about who is the one developing our food products, who is the one doing the research, who is the one running tests on Frosted Flakes, fruit snacks, like who's doing that? So that is what made me interested in the subject, because I knew that there was a lot of work going on behind the scenes, which there is. And so even sensory science is a science within food science. So a lot of people have asked questions, which I'm going to talk a little bit about career options, but food science is like the umbrella, and then under food science there's a lot of different categories within the subject. Okay, so there's food chemistry, sensory science, food processing, raw materials, there's food production, like microbiology, food analysis, food marketing, food research, like product development. There's a lot of different sectors under food science. But junior year is when I started to take the food engineering classes, the food microbiology classes, and then senior year you have a capstone course, which is where you spend a whole semester in a group of people and you're kind of like a mock product development team. And so your senior year, you have the whole semester to do what product developers do. They research things. We had kind of like a food challenge, and it was really cool. So you have different categories that you have to hit. My group, our product was like a vegan product, and it was Brazilian. Other groups had really cool products that they had to develop. That was so fun. So a lot of people ask, is food science difficult? Is it a hard degree? I will say it depends on your level of intellect, and it depends on what your strengths and weaknesses are. For me, it was the challenge that I really needed, because it was easy for me to get good grades in some classes, but then there were some classes where I was like, wait a minute, I like actually have to assess, how am I studying, how am I learning, and like how can I make sure that I do well in this class. So the hardest course for me in this list was definitely the food engineering, just because I didn't know that I was gonna take engineering classes in my food science degree. And I just feel like engineering, you have to think a completely different way when you're talking about like engineering a product based off of pipes, based off of water temperature, based off of like all these different factors that really don't involve the food, but it's like outside factors. And so that class, we had to draw a lot of stuff. We had to do a lot of different calculations, equations. Whoo child, that class gave me a run for my money, but it was good to think that way, because if I applied for a food engineering position, I would have been prepared. Which after undergrad, there were like food engineering positions for like Hershey's, and I was just like, I'm not applying for that, because I hated that class and it was definitely challenging. I had to network really well with my classmates to do well in that class, because I needed help. There's food chemistry lab, which was really fun. You take a sensory lab, a microbiology lab, which was super fun. I think that was probably one of my favorite labs as well. We made wine in one of the microbiology classes, which was so cool. Food analysis. I'm trying to remember that class, you guys. This was like almost like 5-6 years ago. That's crazy. That's crazy. And so that's another reason why I was like, okay, I kind of really want to film this video, because within the years to come, I'm just gonna forget about my experience, because I've already been here, done that. So those are all the courses. You guys can check the link down below. I'll definitely say that it didn't get difficult until junior year. So first year and second year were pretty simple. The chemistries were kind of like difficult. This is personally for me. You don't see how this chemistry is being directly applied to food, because when you're taking a general chemistry class, it's not food chemistry yet. And so it was really cool to eventually take food chem, because food chem actually deals with food and chemistry. I think I said this at the beginning, but this is another disclaimer. I am not in the position to hire anyone. A lot of people have been sending me resumes from India to my email as if I'm like hiring for a food company. I'm not hiring. And so that was another note that I made on here. So I do want to say this though. A lot of people go into food science thinking it's going to be a walk in the park, and it's just not. Like, I don't know if a lot of you guys have that misconception or if you guys perceive the subject to be a little bit difficult, but I do want to come on here and say that it is not a walk in the park. It is going to take a lot of hard work and dedication if you want to get good grades. You could obviously BS the program, but like, why would you do that when it's such a valuable degree? It is a promising degree because food is never gonna be something that we don't need, and so you will always have a job if you have a degree in food science. That is something that I would always preach to people, because we're always gonna need food, and so we're always gonna need food scientists or people in the food industry. My favorite class, food sensory science, and food processing was really fun too. We got to make ketchup. Oh my gosh, we got to do so many fun things on like a large scale because U of I had this big, or they do still have it, this big processing facility. Oh, that was so much fun. Wow, I should probably go look at some of those labs. Honestly, I really did enjoy my degree. Like, it was definitely interesting for me, and that was something that I said at the beginning. I could not study something that was not entertaining in the slightest. Like, there were classes where I was like, I'm not really feeling this, but at the end of the day, I knew that my end goal, I would have a job that I would not get bored of. Some people ask, is food science the same as food chemistry? No. Food chemistry and food science, like, food chemistry is a branch under food science, like I said. So food science is like the big umbrella. I already said that. Is it really competitive to get a job as a food scientist? Yes. Okay, so it's really competitive in the food science degree. So that's another thing. When you're taking these courses or when you're in the program, like, you're technically competing against your peers. Yes, those are your peers and you guys, you know, can work together. But at the end of the day, like, you guys are competing for opportunities in the real world too. Like, you're competing for internships. So it's like, you gotta make sure you level up, like measure up to where you want to be, because it's very competitive. Someone said, I'm a senior in high school and strongly considered a food science degree. What's some advice you would give? Oh, that's a good question. So really quickly, I want to talk about a little bit of my career experience. So after I graduated university, I ended up going to California and working for an avocado company, which, if you guys have been following me for a while, you saw the vlogs on my channel. I did that, really enjoyed my experience, but it wasn't quite what I wanted to do. And so it really goes to show how diverse the food industry could be, because there are so many things that you can do, so you don't have to really settle and do something that you're not super keen on. So I did that, and then after I came back to Chicago, I started teaching food science for 2 years, which was really fun. Quite the experience, which I still have videos, a couple videos on my channel about that. And I taught food science to sophomores, juniors, and seniors in high school. And so even with that opportunity, I'm sure a lot of you guys are wondering, how did you get that opportunity if A, you didn't go to school to be a teacher, because I didn't. I had a lot of undergrad experience, like research assistants, resident assistants. I did a lot of stuff in undergrad, which qualified me to become a teacher. So what happened to the lighting? I would definitely say in undergrad, try to do your best to get involved. I feel like I could have definitely got even more involved, but try to get involved as much as possible, like freshman year, sophomore year, junior year, senior year. Like, the goal is to get involved so that after college you can have a lot of options when it comes to working, and you can be pretty flexible. I taught food science for 2 years, which I just really love that opportunity, but I knew that that wasn't my end goal, and so I didn't want to teach food science for too long, knowing that I wasn't working for a food company, if that makes sense. So after that, I did start working for a candy company, which I think those are the vlogs that a lot of you guys have been coming from or commenting on. I'll link them down below, but I worked for a candy company, and that experience was very telling. It taught me a lot, because that is another thing. People think that it's so great to work for these like really big companies, and while it it has its benefits and it has its, you know, pros and stuff. I personally did not like my experience working for that company, and I wanted out. I wanted to do something different. So in that opportunity, I did learn a lot, and I'm really thankful for everything that I did learn, because it taught me a little bit more about what goes on in some food companies. Not all, but it did teach me a little bit about what goes on in that specific company. So now I actually work for a small company, which I think something within my whole career journey that I've learned is that I think I actually prefer working for a smaller company. I just really like the company that I work for now. So if you guys have seen my recent vlogs, then you know a little bit more about what I do right now in the STEM field. So as someone said, do I need a master's in food science to have a high-paying job? No. And that is another thing that I love about my degree, and another reason why I will preach that people should get a degree in food science, because you do not need a master's degree to make bank. Like, you could make bread, a lot of money, without even having a master's degree. A lot of bachelor's degrees, you can make like 40,000, but sometimes I think the cap is at like 55,000 or 60,000. With a food science degree, like straight out of college with a little bit of experience, you can make 70K or more, like, which I think is really nice. And then after a little bit of experience, say you start a job and you're making like 60K, and after you work with the company for a little bit, then you could get up to 70K, 80K, all of that. So without a master's degree, you can be doing pretty well. And like I said, because food science is a demanding industry, you can be doing well, and you could expect to increase your pay fairly quickly. Is being a food scientist a really booming job? Yes, it is. But like I said, I want to clarify that just because you study food science doesn't mean you have to be just a food scientist. Like, under food science, there's so many options, there's so many things that you can do. So that's why I think that studying food science is really booming, and it's a really good option because there's so many other options that you can do with the degree. Is nutrition dietitian the same as food science? No, actually they're not. So food science is more of like chemistry, science-based. Nutrition and dietitian, yes, it's science, but it's more like clinical, doctor. They're trying to help people with their diets and nutrition. Food science is more like they're working with food and how the food is like chemically made and stuff like that, consumer stuff. They're completely different. And they're completely different degrees if you look it up. So someone said, don't you have to work long hours, and do you have time for yourself, like vacays? So it honestly depends on what you do. It honestly depends on what you do, because there are long hours, but everyone gets vacation. If you're working in a factory or if you're working on the floor, then yes, there are long hours, but that depends on your position as well. Somebody said, can you do an in-depth video of what classes you took in college and how to get a job in that field? This is the video explaining what classes I took. I will have the link down below. How to get a job in the field. I think I'm gonna do separate videos on like interview prep, job like tips and stuff, because it's all different based on what job you want. My biggest thing would be to get a lot of experience and to do really well in your college courses. Like, learn how to network. I know a lot of people hear this like your net worth is your network, or like you're really just as good as your network, or a lot of opportunities come from your network. Like, it's super true, it's very true. And so in college, like, even people that you may not be friends with in your classes, like, get to know them, like become friendly with the people in your class. Don't be too good to be friends with anyone in your class, because like all the people sitting in your food science classes, your chemistry classes, like those are people that could be in your network post-grad. So keep that in mind. Experience working with a lab. Yeah, you definitely want experience working in a lab. I worked in a lab, I think it was my sophomore year or the end of my freshman year. It was my sophomore year. Definitely get experience working in a lab so that those professors and those people can like vouch for you for internships, or you could put that on your resume. And so someone also asked entry salary. Like I said, entry salary for food science jobs typically is around the 50,000 range, but it just depends, honestly. And how to grow in the industry. Whew, these are a lot of questions. Okay. How to grow in the industry, I would say always be willing to take in new info, because the food industry is always evolving and changing and growing, which is great. Focus on your goal and network with people who can help you reach your goal, if that makes sense, because it would be pointless to network with people who like have no value when it comes to like reaching your goal. And so because the industry is so big, like I would say try to keep a network of people who could help you reach your goal in the area that you want to be in. How important are classes such as calculus and organic chemistry in your own job? So in my job right now, I don't use calculus, I don't use organic chemistry. I know some of my friends who are product developers, they use organic chemistry sometimes. I have other friends who may use calculus, but no, I don't use those things. I did have to use a lot of my food chemistry knowledge in my last role when I was working for a candy company. All right, you guys, my camera died, but this video is almost over because it's already pretty long. So people were saying, what is the most rewarding thing about your job, the most challenging thing about your job? I'm gonna just talk about like food science in a whole, because obviously every job that I've had is different. One of the most challenging things about getting a food science degree and having a food science degree for me personally was kind of figuring out what I was really good at, because it's one thing to be like really interested in a subject, but it's another thing to like have a subject that you're just already really good at within food science and that you could just dive right into and like just kind of start your life. And so for me, I would definitely say there were some areas that I was really interested in, but then there were some areas that I was really, really good at. And so I wish I would have started with what I was really good at and kind of worked into what I like really wanted to do. But obviously you end up doing exactly what you want to do at some point. And so one of the most rewarding things about having a degree in food science is just knowing the value of it, knowing the different things about food that people just don't think about. Like some people don't even think about like the fact that foods are made based off of like how people perceive them, and like food products hit the shelf based off of so many test results and like different things. And so I feel like the most rewarding thing is just having a lot of knowledge about food and about science that people don't typically think about. And so you can share that knowledge with people, and yeah, I just think that's really cool. There's still a lot of things that I want to do within my career and things that are kind of like in the works, but I'm just super grateful to have my degree in food science and to have the experience that I have, because I think my experience is very unique. It definitely sets me apart from a lot of different candidates, and that overall is the goal, to get an experience that is kind of unique that can set you apart when applying for jobs. I know a lot of people ask, how do you cope with the classes and being successful? Like I said, people go into food science underestimating how challenging it is and how difficult it is, and how like it's not just like fun making candy, fun making food products, fun, like it's not all fun and games. Even when you do get to have fun, like it's still like hard work behind that. And so think about that before going into it. That's not to discourage anyone, but it is to just kind of enforce like you will have to grind. Like it is a grind, and I personally like that. One of my biggest tips of advice is to find people in your program that you can study with, and people that you can kind of like talk to about like the material. Also go and get help from your professors, your TAs. You're paying for them, so get their help. That's pretty much it. I could talk about this stuff for hours, just because considering my experience, there's a lot to touch on, but I don't want to do that. If you guys have further questions regarding this topic, please leave them in the comment section. I definitely will try to answer all of your questions. I don't think I need to do a part 2 on this video, but if you guys have more detailed questions that you want me to answer, and if I get enough questions, then I definitely will do a part 2 on this. Give me a thumbs up if this video was helpful and if it was informative. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram. It will be linked down below, and I appreciate all the love on all my recent videos. Shout out to you guys, and for all of you guys who are aspiring to be a food scientist or a chemist or whatever, do not give up on your dreams. Like, I think it's easy when you're in the process to get discouraged and for things to be really difficult and for you to really not get that concept. And like, honestly, I remember it was really hard for me to understand in college that like some of these classes, for example, physics 2. I think I mentioned that you have to take physics 1 and 2. Physics 2 was just like something and it took me a long time to realize, like, hey, maybe this just isn't a class that you'll get an A in, and that's okay. It's okay. And so I think also having that grace in college, if you end up getting a B in some of these harder courses, or if you get a C, like, that's okay, you know, because it's like at the end of the day you'll still get your degree and you'll still be moving towards your goal, but make sure you get A's in those other classes just so your GPA is still good. I just want to encourage anyone who's studying food science, like, to really trust the process and don't give up. Reassess your goals at the beginning and the end of each semester, because it can be easy to give up. So yeah, I love you guys so much, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye, you guys.